Yes. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Um, Great. Thanks again for jumping on with us. And I thought we would start with giving you a little bit background on kind of where Shortcuts came from, what we're doing now. And Shortcuts was started just about I guess it's been a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And Jeff and I looked at this as a way for he and I to partner together with my heavy background on sales and his heavy background on marketing. And having worked together in so many companies, we actually worked together in 3 different companies in a lot of different capacities and worked really well together. And so we decided that we would, produce webinars, content, that would educate the industry as the forefront of what we did. And in the end, people would see valuable insights to what we were doing, and then possibly come work with us and hire us. Then over time, it was really, really clear that there are a whole lot of fractionals. As a matter of fact, I was at the women's conference about, I guess that's a year and a few months ago. And I was telling my mom, I was standing aside and I said, well, that's so and so, and that's so and so, and she used to be here, and he used to be there, and I was like, oh my goodness, look at all of these smart people out on their own now. So we decided that we were going to take Shortcuts and turn it into a consortium of fractionals, consultants, and experts that would bring value to both property managers and suppliers. And, again, the number one goal for us is going to be to educate the industry on what's going on and what we see. But, we are all working with so many different, both suppliers and property managers. We're coming with views that are not normal views. So, for now, the webinar and education are going to be roundtables. They're going to be conversations is what we're hoping to do. Short, today is 35 minutes. Now we're down to 30. And then over time, we will actually open it up to members and memberships where property managers or suppliers could go to our website and look for areas they're trying to, go faster in their business and have a shortcut, basically. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll go
Great.
ahead and put the slide forward on who's joined us.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As Michelle mentioned, we created this organization originally as a way to give back to the industry and share some of the many things that Michelle and I have learned. We've been very fortunate in that when Michelle put out the call to the industry for those that might be interested in joining, we heard from lots of people. Over 60, I think, initially raised a hand and said they wanted to be a member, at least a member. Our first mission, though, was to find a board of directors. There's a lot of structural and infrastructure things that we need to do as an association to support, really, truly support each of us as well as the industry. And you're seeing a bunch of those faces here. There's 8 folks who have joined us. You'll hear from a couple of them today. But the thing that Michelle and I were really looking for was someone who shared our mission for sharing, being interested in sharing their wisdom with property managers and suppliers, trying to make a go in this industry. It's a fantastic industry. There's at least 100 years of experience in the lodging hospitality business amongst all of us, give or take 10 or 20 years. And but anyway, we're here. So why don't we get to the next slide, and I'll introduce specifically 3 that will be speaking today. The first is who do I want to start with? Let's start on the left with Crystal. Crystal joined us almost immediately. She's an experienced leader in short-term rental management with a strong background in both sales and operations. Her track record is in driving portfolio growth, optimizing owner retention, and streamlining onboarding processes for new homes. She's passionate about delivering exceptional guest experiences, which is a must for all of us to succeed in this industry, and also building long-term partnerships through data-driven solutions. Secondly, we've got Heather Richer. Heather Richer is currently partner at Richer Logic Consulting. She served as the CMO at Red Awning most recently. And prior to that, she was a VP of Revenue and Distribution at Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. Um, with her background in the hotel and short-term rental space, Heather really does have a broad perspective of the lodging industry, and her experience with revenue management across hotels and resorts and rentals and restaurants has really enabled her to be a valuable resource for our industry. She's involved not just in Verma, but AHLA, HEDNA. She sees the value in education, like all of us do, and the importance of advancing revenue management and the overall short-term and vacation rental industries. She's got a master's in tourism from GW University and resides in the Bay Area, San Francisco. And lastly, Maria Lancaster is the founder and principal of MJ Creative Business Solutions, where she partners with vacation rental management companies to turn insight into action. She's a data geek like many of us, and with a unique blend of experience in the high tech industry and now also the hospitality sector, much like my background. Maria brings a really a precision around leveraging data, um, strategic marketing perspective and insights, and operational expertise to all of her clients. Her background, as I mentioned, is in technology, and it's really shaped her ability to implement smart systems, particularly now with so many advancements around AI and automation and workflows and analyzing performance metrics, KPIs, and dashboards in ways that drive real measurable results. Whether you're guiding revenue strategies or building scalable marketing frameworks, Maria helps her clients achieve clarity, efficiency, and growth. So, as you can tell, three incredibly experienced and insightful women are joining us today to share their wisdom on how to close the revenue gap this peak season, particularly summer of 2025 is facing its well, let's just say it's a different year than those in the recent past, and it's requiring many of us to stay on our toes as we work through those issues. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Michelle, and she'll start leading the Q&A and discussion on some of the top topics we thought you might want to hear about.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Well, something I want to say about all three of these individuals, and frankly, with all of the board members, is that all of us are working in the property management industry, in the tech industry every day with clients. So it's not like, I mean, literally, one Maria will go from a client call to a meeting with us, and that's true with all of the people on the call. So they're in this deep. And when I say we're in this deep, summer's here. Our perishable product is close to expiring. And as we prepared for the discussion, I did a bit of research within Price Labs Market Dashboard, which is practically free. And here's some of the stuff it told me. Overall pacing is down almost everywhere, but you probably know that or you wouldn't have registered and been here today. The good news is inventory has slowed down. So our markets are not as saturated with inventory or new inventory as they were. But RevPAR is up in many markets. Good news, occupancy is down. So, one of the questions I'm going to have for the panel around this is, like, did we miss some occupancy because we got aggressive with pricing? And we'll talk about that. And every market clearly is a little bit different. For example, the Panhandle is doing really well, specifically in RevPAR, but also in occupancy. That makes me wonder if it's because they lowered their prices sooner, where other markets held onto the rate. Again, some things we're going to talk about. Luxury is actually doing pretty well. The uncertainty in the market is not affecting those visitors as drastically as lower end markets. Now, good news is that pickup overall has been pretty good up to now. So that means we could end, and when I say pretty good up to now, I mean pickup is higher than it was in previous years because the booking window is shrinking, as we all know. So that means that this year could be about the same as last year for total revenue, but occupancy probably down. The data was very clear that companies that are using, I looked at the whole market, companies using dynamic pricing of some sort are performing higher than their counterparts who are not. And we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. So let me go to my next slide. So now we're going to jump into questions. Reminder, this is basically this, not basically, this is a discussion. So let's kind of get to this. And first of all, in some of the stuff I just shared, ladies, tell me, is there the things I shared, are they what you're seeing? What do you think about some of the things that I just shared?
Totally aligned. Yeah.
Absolutely, with us as well, yeah.
I think
All
too, it's just revenue management, albeit was always very detailed and myopic. Right now, there's just a lot of testing and, almost like playing to see what's gonna not, what hunts and what sells. So that's been a big piece of it. And part of that is the demand and making sure you're getting that occupancy.
Great, great. Where, when you start thinking about, as we get closer, you end up having, maybe weekends full, but now people are staying 3 nights instead of 4 nights, or 4 nights instead of 5 nights. Or in some markets, it's still Saturday to Saturday, or they charge for a 7 night, but they're only staying 5 nights, things like that. So where do you start to fill the gaps? Like, tell me, and let's start even when we talk about gaps. Is it a 1 night stay? Is it a 3 night onto a 4 night? Like, let's talk about what you see as gaps and what you're doing about filling those.
Ultimately, that 7 to 7 is going away, right? People are staying shorter. So even in the markets with large homes that try to hold on to that are finding they've had to back off. And then you are dealing with, how do I fill these shorter stays? So ideally, you have an operation that can handle a 1 night stay. And we know even if you aren't necessarily going to get 1 night stays, by putting a 1 night stay on channels, you boost your availability algorithm. So if you can take 2 night, 3 night, certainly this summer more than any other summer is where you need that flexibility. And if you can't, just open that, say you would never take a 1 night stay. There are certainly strategies around, operationally offering a half-day stay to the person pre or post. So this is just occupancy efficiency, right? When the market might still get to 86, can you get to 94? And if your operation can handle it, you're going to make more money. So I'll stop there.
Good.
Well, I think too, statistically speaking, if you set something to 7 night that's not a Saturday to Saturday, you're likely not going to fill that calendar as much as if you set it to 5. 5 has larger gaps. So let's say 3 nights, more of those that occur versus if you do 7, it tends to really kind of swirl around and you do get a lot more 1 night gaps. So it's worth looking at. I think, I agree with Heather that the 7 night Saturday to Saturday is going away, but if you're going to move from it, don't move to 7 nights, move to 5.
Good. When you think about those markets that are 7 to 7, like they have been in the past, and you switch to, well, actually, I'll save this for operational questions. I'll save this for operational questions. So what are some of the things that you're advising to your clients right now as far as filling those gaps? Are you telling them to list more on the OTAs, shorten their minimum stays, do email blasts? Like like I said, we're into the perishable product. We can't sell last night for any amount of money. So what are some of the things? Give me 1 or 2 things that you're sharing with your customers.
I would say opening the shorter stays sooner than you might think. And, a larger home is not going to sell within 7 days, less likely, right? So really getting ahead of it. Are you talking about August now and opening up midweek? Those kinds of things are really important to get ahead of it. And though the booking window is shorter, there are still people that are booking farther out. So you want a piece of that early booking action too. And there's benefit to being a first mover.
Good.
I think too, from a reporting side, it makes sense to run a report that gives you the unbookable nights. One example would be an owner comes in, you have it set to 5, and their stay makes that gap a 4-night. You're not going to book that 4 nights unless you go in there and change it. So you need to run a report that shows you the unbookable nights. And the other thing, along with what Heather was saying, was look at your adjustments that you've automated, because sometimes they are your best friend, but they can also cause some havoc in properties not booking because it's doing what you're asking instead of dealing with some anomalies that you may have in various calendars.
Great.
I do want to mention one other thing, Michelle, that I discovered 2 days ago that we talked about in our board meeting. One of my clients, I found out that the web provider would allow if you will, blind promotion. So it showed up on the website as a special, but it didn't really have a discount. What it did was it helped the guests on the website find the gap nights. And it only listed the properties that had gap nights and X nights. So I did 14. And it literally gave a list of the properties that had the gap night with a marketing that said these are discounted nights. A good way to do a quick trip is to book these. So
they showed up as specials,
they showed up in specials
specific
and then
dates.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good.
Arrival date. So set the arrival date to 14 nights. So within, today through when the 14th the night is, find me all the properties that have 2-night gaps, as an example.
Great.
Yeah.
I know that was a specific web provider. Do you guys know if any of the pricing or other website companies do that? Or can the PMS just show those under specials, any of those things?
I would say tech, like it's dependent right on the tech. I think it's more frequent. I've seen it more where you can have some like booking engine specific settings and link things to be more automated, like last minute deals, pages, things like that.
Okay, good. And those of you on the podcast, please, like I see Julie said, easy to manage in dynamic pricing systems. Julie, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that? Is what we're talking about easy to show up, and can it show up on just
Not necessarily the way that it was, that was a little bit delayed, but the way that you fill gap nights, right? You can really go in and be very strategic about filling gap nights in a beyond pricing system. And then what we do is we actually charge more for those nights. So we add like a short stay surcharge. So that's really where I was going with that.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about that in general. When you are taking gap nights, do any of you suggest to your clients to, like, fine, it's 3 nights, but charge them for 4 nights. Just amortize the rate over the 3 nights. Do you do any of that recommendation?
Exactly what we do is we would say, okay, if we're going to allow a 2-night stay, we're going to price, and we don't do it for 3 nights, but we'll say we're going to price it 10 or 20% higher so that we're getting a higher ADR for those 2 nights. And it really makes the owners happy and takes away the staying in those days.
Good. Thank you.
Michelle,
What
just
about,
side note, we're seeing your questions.
That's okay.
I'm not sure if you wanted. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh, you mean over there? Okay. No, I don't want you to see my questions. That wouldn't have any surprise, would it? Okay, so when is like, are there any markets that are actually full? Like, do you want to be at 100% over a weekend?
I love that question. It's like the age old. If you sold out too soon, you left money on the table for sure. But if you could handle operationally, selling out is the way you're going to make the most money. Like you said, right? It's perishable inventory. So if you can handle it, sell it. And again, then there's wear and tear on units and you're balancing, retaining owners, of course. But from a pure revenue management perspective, that would be the goal.
The other piece of it too
Michelle,
is get those fees that happen with every reservation that goes straight to the organization and the bottom line. So that's a key piece too to remember from a company perspective, not necessarily an owner.
yeah, Michelle, I was going to tell you, from what I'm seeing, we do have several markets that every weekend is at 100% right now. Like one of the markets is, Deep Creek, Maryland. I think this last weekend was the first time we were at 96. So we are seeing weekends specifically being full.
And do you compare that to RevPAR from previous weekends? Like, are you leaving any money on the table?
I think at the beginning of this season, yes, we were leaving a little bit of money on the table, but I think to Heather's, statement earlier of, there is some benefits to being the first one to make that move. We then were able to see higher RevPAR after that, for the following, weekends. So
Great. Great. So let's talk a little bit about dynamic pricing, kind of, in not just in theory, but in practice. How do you use dynamic pricing to balance the shorter booking window?
I think you've just got to be on top of it and have your days set out where you're going to go in for those, say 60 days out, even 90, and look at those and see by each property what is going on. The dynamic pricing is helping, and certainly in a lot of cases is doing an excellent job, but sometimes it can be a little bit high for what's booking, and it can be a little bit low for some properties. So to be in there and allow it to do what it needs to do, but also know that your knowledge of the market and of what's the rates that are happening, those adjustments have to be made, or if you've set it and forget it, you may not get a booking at all.
No,
Anybody else into that?
Yeah, just would totally agree on the, your settings should align by day of week, and then monitoring the booking window, because if you have some certain adjustments based on what you believe the booking window historically was, these are things that you may need to be changing, so that not just you've set it for, say, summer, but monitoring, is it still making sense? And then getting more granular, and really all the technology is making just like leaps and bounds in your ability to curate like seasons, days of week, booking windows. And so if you don't have those settings right, you're not going to be optimizing revenue.
Do you guys see people using pricing platforms and not being as active as they should be?
Sure, all the time. That's, I mean, if there isn't someone dedicated to revenue management as their role, if it's just like a side hat that they wear in the organization, it can slip, because it takes a proactive sit down, focus, reassess versus like responding to a guest, right?
Yeah.
The same person has both roles. That's tough.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm being conscious of time because this is supposed to be kind of quick and snappy. So like, you're advising me, it's summer. I'm normally at 80% occupied by now. I'm more like 74, and I need to fill some. Give me the top 3 things I should be doing right now today.
Well, I would say first and foremost, looking at your time-based adjustments in that booking window. If you don't already have something, obviously like Key Data has something that'll tell you your booking window by bedroom, or, by a myriad of choices, channel, etc. I mean, start there to see where you are in those settings that, may not be absolutely correct. You may want to, for some properties, reduce sooner, and for other properties, actually reduce later on, depending on what the market is doing.
You're saying like, look for the ones that need to be changed right now and go ahead and change them.
By their pace. If they're not pacing, it's time to make, it was time to make a change a long time ago, but if you're at the last minute, those are some of the things you can start doing. Yeah, and do be aware of the days that are booking. So for Savannah, as an example, weekends are the king of a stay. That's where you're going to make your money. And then people will then book the weekdays if the rate seems reasonable. So you just have to know your market. Adjust, adjust, adjust.
What about Crystal, you or Heather on that?
The only thing I would add is market. So agree on unit specific, day of week, unit, what's your watch list of like underperforming units? You got to get granular if you're like, I'm not at the occupancy I want to be. But are you aligned with the market? Have you slipped more than the market? Like, can you answer that questions in a granular way? That'd be something I'd for sure be like, you got to know the answer to this.
And then if you are behind the market, does that mean that you should dump rate? Because what I'm hearing right now is it sounds like this is a rate game. A rate game. If you get this far in, the only way you're going to be able to drive revenue to make up the difference is through rate. That's kind of what I hear. Is that true when you get to be this short? Because I have a few ideas that aren't rate oriented.
Yeah, I think that's when you get into dropping rate versus like marketing it, right? Because lowering rate alone is not a form of promotion. So now you're in the how am I merchandising?
Yeah.
And also minimum nights. So if you've got it set on a large property for 5 nights as an example, still, then you might want to consider, unless the owner has made it a specific request at a minimum night, to drop those nights to see if you can get any fill in that space. Leave the rate.
Yeah.
You can increase the rate.
So let's talk about, let's move from rate to, merchandising and marketing. Because like I know when I was a property manager, just waiting to see the bookings every day and look at pace by room at type would like make me a little crazy. I'm like, I can't just wait. I got to do something. So, what are some of the things that are proactive outside of rate that you could do to get more um, more direct business converted?
Digital marketing is a biggie.
Okay.
If you're not already doing it, but look at your pay-per-click campaigns and see if they're targeting where you have the most challenge, and get that campaign to be targeted more at the properties that need that help.
Okay.
That is such a quick fix.
Yeah, that's really good. So look at the properties that actually need the revenue and then market those specific properties. So that's good. I really like that. What else, you guys?
Specials.
And
Get
I
her
think
targeted to those properties again.
if you're like, okay, I need a direct book advantage. I want to go after direct bookings, last minute, farther out, whatever, right? Those basics of like your booking engine, do you have like promo codes? Are you emailing past guests? Like, do you have a whole package? But book direct advantage means, yeah, maybe your price is lower, but maybe you have a more flexible cancel policy on your own website. Or maybe there's other advantages, like you give a welcome amenity to everybody who books direct. So kind of changing the mindset of like, what's your direct booked advantage or book direct advantage if you are really clear that's part of your mission.
But
Yeah.
if your strategy has always been, and I have a client who heavily depends on Verbo along with their website, now would not be the time to change that strategy. And if you're going to do a discount, do it across all your channels. Don't do it just for your website. And then as the high season leaves us behind, then reconsider how you're really trying to beef up your direct.
Yeah, that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm thinking about. Like, I need to change things today would be, email blasts to people that, that normally book by now that don't. Email blasts to previous guests that booked large homes that are now available. Participating in promotions on OTAs that you normally don't participate in because it's a deeper commission cut. That would be another way. You kind of get where I'm going with that. Any thoughts, Crystal?
I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think that on the operational side, being able to upsell anything during season is going to close some of that gap for you. So, sending out an email before check-in to number one, prioritize who is going to be in town early, prioritizing if the property can be cleaned early and then upselling that to the guest. Same thing with late checkouts, especially if we're seeing a lot of, Friday through Sundays, offering that late checkout on Sunday if you have no one in on Monday. So I think that a lot of those upsells you're gonna like make up some of your revenue from those.
That's good. And so that's a perfect segue into the operational stuff. What are other things? So, upsells as far as early check-in, late checkout. What are some other operational things that you can change when you do get into a high occupancy situation?
I think a lot of operations is preparing before season, right? So it's ensuring that, warehouse is stocked with everything in advance. A large thing that I see is trying to train staff during peak season because we didn't hire, in advance. I would highly recommend against that. Like, we need to have people hired 2 months before your season, whatever that looks like, and have them fully trained before that season starts. And then also, like, cross training any of your current, employees, being able to have a property manager that can do something else or a CSM that can step into the field. Those are going to make huge differences during when you're fully occupied and things are crazy and hectic.
Good, good.
So you need to take care of your housekeepers. It's like once upon a time I came up with the saying, take care of your owners and take care of your housekeepers, and your company will be very successful. Make
Yes.
sure those housekeepers, if they're doing a phenomenal job, figure out some way to give them an add a person type of $25 gift card or something, but they're working really hard and they're the ones who are making the first impression guest experience.
Good.
Yeah, I can tell you, Maria, in Savannah, Lucky's, which you deal with personally, we do with our inspectors, there's a lot of housekeepers or contractors who actually do the same thing for their inspectors, who come in behind them and, maybe a housekeeper did miss something and they handled it during that process. I have seen that transaction happen both ways, in the operational side.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. We didn't mention that Crystal also owns a laundry business, so she knows a lot about the back of house and how to be ready. So we're right now at our 30-minute mark, which is what we promised everybody. And so that was quick, down and dirty. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this. At this point, what we'd love you guys to do is use this QR code, because what we want to know is, should we, or what should we cover next? What did you think about this? Was it enough time? So if you could use the QR code and give us a little feedback, that would be terrific. And what else was I supposed to say on this slide?
I think that was it.
We also will have you vote for the next webinar.
Yeah, very good point. So you'll see that there's actually an opportunity for you to tell us what we should cover. And, I don't know if you know everybody on that list, but we have a pretty good board of directors here with a ton of experience. And if you have a topic that that you want covered and we don't know it, we'll bring somebody else in. And our goal is never to sell you anything. Our goal is to kind of share with you the things we're seeing in the market and how we're helping the property managers that we work with. So if you could go ahead and use that QR code, that'd be great. I'm going to go to the next slide and just let you know, here's the contact people of everybody or the contact information for everybody that just spoke. And if you're interested in our next podcast, we're going to give you all a break and get through summer. And so it won't be until September. But I thank you all. There are some other questions in here and you guys can all see them, which is great. But it's super, super nice to have you all here. Thank you so much. And we'll see you in September.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.